Hello crafties, welcome to another video. My name is Infiniti and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a pillow form or a zip pouch kind of deal for under $10. So for that today, you're going to need a bag of polyfill. I got all my stuff from Walmart and this was like $3.47. You're going to need sewing needles, thread, 2 fabric quarters. Make sure that your thread matches your fabric quarter. You're going to need a soft lead pencil. Now this is I can never pronounce this pencil, but it's basically a soft lead pencil. You can find them anywhere, or you can get a sewing chalk. I'm going to have a ruler with me today, as well as a zipper, which also matches my fabric and my thread specifically. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Alright, so there's a couple of things that we're going to do before we actually get started with the sewing. First of all, I can move this stuff out of my way. First of all, I'm going to open up my other quarter. And these quarters are 18 by 21 inches, so they're pretty sizable. Not too humongous. If you're making a bigger pillow, cool. If you're making a smaller pillow or a set of pillows, these are good because you can probably get a couple pillows out of these depending on how big they are. So I'm just getting that paper off of them. What we're going to be doing is making a bit of I don't want to say a pleat, but we're going to be tacking down some stuff before we actually start sewing on the zipper and sewing up the sides. So I'm going to take my other piece of fabric off of the cardboard, and I'm going to lay it out the wrong side up. Move that, move that, and move that. And lay the wrong side up. Now, oh cool, they're matching. So there should be like this little white tab here. And you're going to want to make sure that those two seams on both sides of the fabric, or both pieces of fabric, are matched up with each other, because this side is the more secure side. It's been finished off, and the other sides, I mean, they're finished, but they're not. They could easily ravel apart if you picked at them too much, like this little piece here. So what I'm going to do is line up those two white sides, making sure they're good and even. And I'm going to lay that out there so you guys can see it. And what I shall do first is lay my ruler across my fabric, because first of all, this is the end that I'm going to be sewing my zipper on. So I want to give myself some folding room. Let me push up my sleeves. I want to give myself some folding room for this, maybe an inch. This ruler is about an inch wide. And by using the ruler to do this, I come out with a more even product, which is good, because like if you want to sell these, you want to make sure they look good and proper. Now, something I didn't mention, I'm going to get out some stick pins that I got from my grandmother's arsenal of sewing supplies. But if you don't have these laying around, they're $1 or less at any store, so pick those up, probably except Michael's, but pretty much $1. And what I'm going to do is just pin this down very lightly across here, but snug enough to where I can like yank out this ruler after I'm done. And one more. Okay, and while I have this ruler down here, I'm going to get that pencil that I mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to draw a line across where the ruler is so that I can sew in a straight line. When I get ready to tack this bad boy down. And they don't have to be straight lines. They can, I mean, well, not straight across, but just like a dashed line. And this will wash out, so that's a plus. It's just a little graphite. But you want the lead to be soft so that it is easy to wash out and it's easy to manipulate and move around. So now what I'm going to do is get my thread. I am going to find the end of it. This one isn't as visible as others have been, unfortunately. It's like I see where it should be, but it's not there. Alright, so first and foremost, this tutorial is gonna run assuming that you already know some very basic things about sewing. The stitch we're going to be using today is the running back stitch, I believe it's called. Basically, you're just going to be weaving in and out and in and out and doing a tying off stitch at the end. So what I want to do today, or right now, I have my quarters already open. Moving my thread out of my way. I have my quarters already open, and what I want to do is actually make a little seam because I want my zipper to be super secure by the time I get ready to sew it on, and I mean, you could do it with just a single layer of fabric, but I prefer to have this folded down. So I say have about an inch, maybe. You don't have to make this super ginormous. And that's kind of why I have the ruler, because the ruler helps me to determine these measurements. I know my ruler is an inch wide, so when I fold over the fabric, I know all I have to do is just line it up pretty much with the edge of the ruler as evenly as possible. And you can see I have this little line drawn across here, and that's to kind of show me how or where I need to sew. So I'm just going to redraw that line real quick, holding it down. And this is why you want a soft lead pencil or some sewing chalk, or I call it sewing chalk, but basically that sewing pen that you can write on your fabric with. Either one of those will wash out just fine. I mean, we've all gotten pencil lead on our pants as kids, so it's like, it'll wash out. Alright, and now that that's drawn out, I can slip out this ruler and fold it back down. Kind of press along the edges like that. Now if you want to iron it down, go ahead and do that, but I am not doing that today. And what I will do is use my ruler as a weight as I go across my fabric and pin down these little areas. just one more for good measure. Okay, so that gives me a pretty even little line that shows me where I need to sew. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and do that to my other piece of fabric that I have to the side. I'm just going to gently lay this piece of fabric to the side. Something that helps about doing this on a board with lines, or I'm using my matting board right now, is that you can line up this ruler edge with any one of these lines to make sure that your seam is going to be straight once you actually make it. So I'm going to go ahead and draw these lines. Ultimately, this part is going to be inside of the fabric, so I mean, you're free to be as messy with this drawing as you'd like to be. Now obviously, if you're doing this with a sewing machine, it'll be a lot straighter, a lot more, what do I want to say, it would be a lot straighter, probably a lot easier. However, for those of us who aren't that good at the sewing machine, or don't know how to use a sewing machine yet, this is for you guys. Because I don't know, there's this cool thing about making things by hand. Like, sure, yes, machines are more convenient, but that feeling that you made something completely by hand, it's just a good feeling to me in general. But let me know what you guys think about that, because I think that's something that's it varies throughout the maker community. Okay, and now I can slide my ruler up. And now I have these two measured out little pieces that I can now sew down. And what I'm going to do now is thread my needle. Now my thread is already in my needle, but I want to make sure that I have enough yarn. I'm sorry, not yarn. Enough thread to go across this seam. Now, I do this a lot when I sew things down and around, but I like to do this as well when I sew things in a straight line. I pull out about twice as much as I actually need in order to make sure that I have enough thread to complete my seam. And that keeps you from having to rethread the needle and try to correct some seams or having to rip it out. So basically all you do to tie that down is just wrap the string around your finger and just roll it on down until it creates a knot. And I like to do that twice. That gives me a little added security. And now what I'm going to do is sew down along these lines, pulling out my pins as I go. And you always start on the inside. You don't want those ugly knots on the outside of your work. And if your thread matches your fabric, you won't be able to see it. First of all, you won't be able to see your stitches very well on the fabric, much like mine. But by drawing this line and following along with it, my stitches are quite straight, which is something that I'm happy about. Because otherwise you'd be just kind of tacking it down haphazardly and it would look bad. Alright, so I've already started my second piece of fabric. I did not realize that my camera cut out on me right at the end there of that row. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to do my running back stitch across this second piece. that home stretch of being done, just going to kind of go in almost to the end of the fabric piece. Of course, not to the very end. If you've watched some of my other crochet tutorials where I'm sewing things down to mats, you'll know that I never ever ever sew things all the way down to the very edge, because as you can see maybe on your fabric or my fabric, that unless it's been finished off, like the ends that we just tacked down, this stuff frays, and the more it frays, the more stitches you lose, and your whole project falls apart and the world ends. So the less of that we can have, the better. So now what I'm going to do is do a tying down stitch, as they call it, which is basically threading your needle under the last stitch you did before you came up, and you're going to put your needle under the loop that it's forming. You're just going to pull it snug, but not too snug to where it makes a pleat, and it's going to make a little tie, but you want to do this at least 2 or 3 times so that it creates a knot, and it for sure won't come apart. As you guys know, I'm the paranoid crafter, so I always overdo it, which technically I guess you can't really overdo it if it's perfectly secure. So after that, I'm going to go to my go-to guy, dab a little fray check down. Fray check, again, is just fabric glue. You can find it at Walmart as well. I didn't calculate the cost of that into this video because I already had surplus supply of it on my shelf. But as for the fabric, the polyfill, the zipper, the thread, all that I got for $9.15 plus tax. So this is a really inexpensive project. It's perfect for that, thrifty DIY person, if that's you, more power to you. Just a good little way to jazz up your space. So now I'm going to lay this out, and I'm quite proud. What I'm going to do next is tack down my zipper. I'm going to unzip it just a little bit. And I know that my fabric is 18 inches across, or it should be, and it is. Good. It's 18 inches across. So, and my zipper is 7 inches. So I want this to be in the middle. So I know 18 minus 7 is 11. And then 11 divided by 2 is 5.5. Yeah, so 5.5. So what I'm going to do is put dashes on the fabric at 5.5 inches on this side, and then 5.5 inches on this side. And so usually you would have a zipper that is as wide as your fabric, or just about as wide as your fabric. I did not want to have to close off, per se, my zipper and have to go through all that and blah 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 blah. I wanted something that was kind of simple and a little bit painless to do. So I'm going to place my zipper on my fabric, and I'm going to come in just a little bit, just a little ways, and place it. Yay. And I'm going to get my needle and thread back, and I'm going to tack it down much like I tacked down my thinner piece of fabric. Now actually, for this kind of sewing down, if I expected to use this object really often, I would use some jean top stitch, which I do have in white and black, and the white would actually match very well with this paisley pattern. However, not today. Not today. And I'm just going to proceed to tack down this zipper to this side. Just weaving the needle in and out. I'm going to keep doing that, weaving back stitch. Again, not sewing at the very edge of the zipper on either side. Just to make my life easier later. Notice I didn't draw a line on my zipper. It's not necessarily to keep it clean, but just kind of don't need to, especially if you weave multiple stitches onto your sewing needle. It keeps it all fairly straight for you, and you always come back to that inside so you can see where you're going for the next round of stitches. And I kind of use my surface to push my needle up, because from experience you jab yourself more if you don't do that. It's not fun, not fun. Yes. My sleeves keep getting in the way, but thankfully I have not sewn myself to my project yet. I did say yet. Remains to be seen. Okay, now you have options here. You can either, hopefully you've left yourself enough thread. You can either do the tying down stitch here, or you can bring this on over to the edge, still doing the in and out stitch, but a little closer together. And then you could do a whip stitch to sew this down a couple times here at this end. And you could clip these zigzag ends. I'm not going to close mine because they're going to be down in the pouch, but you're more than welcome to. And after I do that second whip stitch, I'm going to do a tying down stitch and just get that down tacked, or tacked down rather. And it's just a little extra security against, well, you know, it coming apart. Unless, of course, it wants to do these tangly things on you. Then you just pull one thread at a time. Very gently so you don't snap your thread. Use a little fray check. And dab it down right there. And then you can snip. Ow, you can snip your yarn. Alright. And so, in doing this, by the time I get done sewing this down, this zipper will be pretty much hidden except for the little actual zip part. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my other piece. Okay, so I am back now with my second piece, and I've taken the liberty to just kind of pin this down so I can gain my bearings and see where I need to patch this zipper down on this other one. So I'm just going to slide my hand under there, and I'm going to begin sewing in and out. Okay, so now that I have my zippers sewn down, I looked at the other side and I'm pretty happy with how that looks. My zipper is functional. Cool. And so now I'm going to zip that back up, and I'm going to flip my project back inside out. And I can also remove these pins that are in here. So basically I was using those to help me line up my zipper with my fabric. But now I don't need them right now. And now that I have my project inside out, what I'm going to do is make sure that all my corners are lined up. Now here's where you have some options. Now either you can go through and meticulously fold and tack down these edges like you did up here, or you can let your hem work do the job for you. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Alright, so now that I have my two pieces together, I went ahead and I started sewing like right under where these zippers flay out, and I kind of went on and started stitching just because my thread was so tangly and my camera died on me as I was trying to sort that out, so now I have it together. And now that I am over far enough, I'm going to start actually sewing downward. And making my way around my pillow. And so I'll meet you guys back once I have stitched all the way around this fabric and made it back to the end. Okay, so I am almost to the end where I need to close off my row, but I have a little pocket hole here big enough for me to put my hand in and just make sure my zipper is open, because it's going to be kind of hard to open it once it's all the way sewn up. And I'm going to get my little baby hand out of there, and I'm going to continue to sew up my seam. Also, please excuse any of the loud noise in the background that maybe didn't get cut. It sounds like they're having a wild party over there. Yes, it's part of their late night fun time. Alright. Now, much like the other side, I'm going to come up under where this zipper is flaying out, and I just went in and did another running stitch, but now I'm going to come over out the top of this seam, and I am going to do a whip stitch and a tying stitch. And I'm going to do that twice, just to secure my stitch. And then I am going to do one more tying stitch to fasten down my sewing. And maybe one more time, I lied, I'm sorry. And now I'll just get a little fray check and dab on there. Just like I did on the other side, probably off camera. And now I can cut my yarn. And I am done with the sewing needle. And I am done with the sewing needle. Now, if you have your own personal tags, on the flip side, you can sew your tags on, but that's something totally different. Hopefully you know how to do that. What I'm going to do now is get my big scissors. Yes, I got new scissors. And I am going to just kind of round off these corners, and that makes my pillow less bulky where I don't want it to be bulky. there's going to be so many muted pieces to this video. And I'm going to cut off these little straggly guys. And then round off that just a little bit. And do the same to the other side. Alright, put these away. Now here comes the fun part. You get to reach inside this zipper and pull your whole project outside, inside out again, would it be? And I like to pop mine out and just stick your, I like to kind of pop mine out and just kind of stick my hand in there and push out those corners. Get that last corner. And now I have this handy little sack. So what's going to happen now is that I'm going to go back to my spot and I'm going to get to doing my favorite part of the tutorial. Okay, so what I want to do before I get to doing my favorite part, I'm going to measure this out. So I started with 2 fabric quarters, which both of those fabric quarters were 18 by 21 inches. So after not cutting my fabric and sewing together just the raw material, I ended up with a product that is 16 by 18. It's a pretty nice size, if I do say so myself. Okay, so my favorite part of this is, drumroll, the polyfill. And I know I shouldn't be super excited about polyfill, but I am. Maybe it's just one of my quirks. So I'm going to open that up here. Ha! And I'm going to pick up my little bag. Now obviously you'd have like a bigger workspace with this for if you had a bigger zipper to sew in. However, say that you have like little kids that like to play with everything, this bag is actually good for zipping up and pretty much concealing that zipper from their immediate attention. So that kind of keeps your stuffing in. Plus, say you have little kids and they spill stuff, because Lord knows they do it. That's perfect for that too. So I'm just going to start taking large handfuls of polyfill and putting it into my pillow sack. And of course you can use this zipper pouch. You could just like not stuff it with the stuffing, but you could use it for like a bag. You can make your own purses. It's versatile. Also, if you've never worked with polyfill before, they have this little stick. It's like a little mystery stick inside of the bag that you can use to stuff your fill into whatever. Because, like say you make amigurumi or any other kind of stuffed animal with this stuff, some of those pieces get kind of small. So you're going to need something. And if it's smaller than your finger, then obviously you're going to need something that's thin and slender to stuff the item with. And I'm just kind of massaging the fill inside of my bag here to make sure it's evenly distributed. And how full this gets is completely up to you. But I like to overstuff my projects, so, you know, guilty pleasure. Just gonna rip it up, have fun. If you have little siblings or if you have kids or something, they like getting messy with this kind of stuff, so you could have them to sit up and tear this stuff apart for you if you're gonna make a bunch of these, like for sales, for craft fairs and things like that. They are the perfect little helpers with their tiny little hands. Plus they have so much energy. It's like, where does it all come from? I'm just gonna keep doing it. And so these quarters, of course, come in a variety of colors. Like I said, I got absolutely all of my supplies from Walmart, and altogether it cost me $9.15 plus tax, which isn't bad. And considering if you've like scoped out Etsy to see price trends, that's not bad considering the return you can get on some of this stuff. But they also make good gifts and things of that nature. Just gonna keep stuffing this stuff in there. I don't know about you guys, but the fluffier a pillow is, the more I'm willing to pay for it. Not that I'm gonna sell this one, but you know, for aesthetics, how about that? Your question is probably, are you putting the whole bag of polyfill in there? The answer to this question is yes. Yes, it is. Yes, I am. Just kind of filling out that corner. That's the cool thing about filling these things up. It eventually pops out that corner that you probably didn't get with your fingers. And that allows for more stuffing to go in. Volume matters a lot. Kind of see how a turkey feels during the holidays. It can no longer stand. I got gypped out of my stick. Oh well. And when you're done stuffing your pillow to your heart's content, you can zip it up. And continue to fluff it any way you please. And now you have a pretty much professional looking stuffed pillow that you've made with your own hands. Now I will say sometimes like those frayed ends on your project might be poking at the seam somewhere, so to just like look around your product and make sure that that's not happening. There it is. Just snip that like that. Make sure not to rip your seams, otherwise you'll be sad. And there you go. Now you have the perfect space. Perfect. And there you go. Now you have the perfect pillow for your space. Whether you are like just newly moved and decorating, trying to add a pop of color to your space, needed a gift idea, you have successfully created a masterpiece. And needless to say, the cleaning for these are super easy, super effective. If you wanted to take the stuffing out and wash it, if the stuffing gets ruined, you can always throw it out, get another bag for like $3.50 and restuff your pillow, and always keep it nice and fresh. So until next time, happy making.